Hey guys, in this video, we're going to go through all the betting trends for every game of round two in the NRL and go back and look at what the odds were last time these sides have met, because this is one of the key things that you can look at when determining which teams are value or whether the line is wrong or the total is too high or too low for a matchup when you're deciding what bets you want to put on. So we'll start with the Thursday night game, the Broncos versus Rabbitohs. I'm also going to go through my early thoughts on each of these matchups. And later this week, I'll be posting my official bets that I'm having for the particular games this weekend. So Broncos and Rabbitohs. Broncos, 8.5-point favorite, totals 41.5. Four of the last six matchups between these two sides have gone under the total points line, which is interesting that they've been slightly lower scoring. Generally, you would associate these two teams as both high-scoring sides, but their recent matchups have been mostly blowouts. You can see 46-0 to the Rabbitohs back in 2021, 32-12, 32-6, 36-20. The game in round one in 2022 was fairly close, 11 points to 4. Last time they met, the Broncos were a 1.5-point favorite away from home. So that number moving up to 8.5 at home is a fairly significant jump. You generally only see teams move up about 4 points from away to home. So it's just about double that. Brisbane did convincingly win this latest matchup towards the end of last season. Both sides coming back from Vegas, and both of them lost over there as well. So important game for both sides. I'd be leaning towards the Broncos winning this game at home, but not super excited about -8.5. And I feel like the total at 41.5 is slightly right. It's moved down 3 points from the last time they met. Sharks against the Bulldogs, the early game on Friday night. Sharks are also an 8.5-point favorite, and the total is at 40.5 for this matchup. There's no real major trends with the betting. The Sharks have won 11 of the past 13 against the Bulldogs, and suspect they likely win this matchup. Nice win last week against the Warriors over in New Zealand. And this is definitely a much easier matchup based on what the Bulldogs put up in round one and what they've done in the previous seasons leading into this. Also, what's interesting, last time they met, round 16 last year, the Sharks were a 17.5-point favorite. Now, like, Bulldogs really haven't done anything all that exciting since then to warrant this line closing all the way to an 8.5. So definitely be leaning towards the Sharks covering. I don't love the Sharks covering large spreads, like anything over a converted try. So I'm a little bit wary of that. But their previous times, there was -17.5, -14.5, -22.5. So, like, this is a big drop off. So I'm very surprised about this line. I feel like, could easily be in double digits. And the total at 40.5. I don't really have an opinion on that. I'd say it's kind of low, to be honest. I feel like it could go over this number. Last time they met 45.5, they had a 50.5-point total back in 2022 as well, but it did go under, and the Bulldogs were scoreless in that game. So the only thing that makes me nervous about the total is that I feel like Bulldogs may struggle to score. Sharks held the Warriors out after the 15-minute mark in their game last week over in New Zealand. So I definitely lean towards the Sharks winning that game and winning it comfortably. Panthers, Eels, Penrith are a 7.5-point favorite. Last time they met, they were an 18.5-point favorite, and the Eels won that game outright at $8, covering the 18.5-point spread. So that number's come down very significantly, all the way to -17.5. A big trend in this matchup. 15 of the last 19 games have gone under the total points line. Last time they met, it was set at 43.5. They brought it all the way down to 36.5 for this game. So even though, the games have been going under, the bookies are really trying to crunch that number. 4 of the last 6 have gone over, though. So the 13 prior to the last 6 were all going under the total. The home team has covered 4 of the past 5. This is an interesting matchup. Important game for Penrith to win, but they're definitely vulnerable. The Eels have won the last 2 against the Panthers, one of the only teams in the league that have a good record against them. So definitely would be leaning towards the Eels at that +7.5. And even though majority of these games have gone under, the fact they brought that number down to 36.5, it's very, very low. And slightly at this stage, we're leaning towards the over, but not very strongly. Canberra take on the Tigers. Canberra were definitely exceeded expectations in round number 1, and the Tigers obviously coming through the bye. Raiders are a 7.5-point favorite for this game. They're a 12.5-point favorite. Last time these sides met, they only won by 4, so didn't cover the spread. The Tigers have covered the last 2. But Canberra has won 11 of the past 12 head-to-head, and their only loss in that time was by 2 points. So I think Canberra should probably win this game based off if they hold form of what they did in round number 1, then they should be beating the Tigers. 7.5 is a pretty big spread for a team that's like there was low expectations of early in the season. 7 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone under the total. Last time they met, it was 46.5 down to 43.5. That's more so the number that we've seen in previous matchups, so it's slightly leaning towards the under in that game. Cowboys take on the Knights. Cowboys are a 7.5-point favorite. There's a lot of lines this week, all on that just other side of the converted try. Last time they met, the Cowboys were a 3.5-point favorite at home, and back in 2022 were a 14.5-point favorite at home. The home team has won 14 of the past 16 head-to-head, and there's 1 draw. So the away side's only won once in the past 16. So that's not really good news for Newcastle, especially off their performance in round number 1 against the Raiders. And the home team has also covered 13 of the past 16 head-to-head. Hence the pretty big jump in the line. Also, Cowboys coming off a big win, Knights coming off a big loss in the opening round. Cowboys have also won 8 of the past 11. I feel like this is a good bounce back opportunity for Newcastle, but they're a little bit hard to trust, especially with their poor record against the Cowboys and in this matchup, and traveling up to North Queensland off their first up performance. So maybe if the line got to double digits and they're plus 10, then I consider backing the Knights at the plus. From a total perspective, 45.5. This number has jumped from 41.5 last time these two sides met, and games have been going under. So at this stage, I'd slightly be leaning towards the unders. But the Cowboys really racked up points last week. However, Newcastle's defense is significantly better than the Dolphins. So definitely leaning towards the under in that game. Storm take on Warriors. The Storm are a 5.5-point favorite. Last time they met, they were an 11.5-point favorite. So that number has basically been cut in half. Even though the Storm won that game by 8 points, they didn't cover the spread. The Warriors have covered the past 2. Melbourne has won 14 straight against the Warriors. So they have a really, really good record. Storm coming off keeping Penrith scoreless last week. Warriors coming off a loss to Cronulla over in New Zealand. 6 of the past 7 head-to-head have gone over the total. So Storm, obviously a very good defensive side. These matches have been higher scoring, and that total has come down from 42.5 to 40.5. I would... this is a really tricky one to call because Melbourne was so good defensively last week, and there is the little potential of a bit of a letdown spot for them. However, they're coming off that they're such a good team in round 1 and then also have a great record against the Warriors. So there's a high likelihood they go 2-0. I don't think there's a ton of value in them at the $1.48 or taking them minus 5.5. But I feel like Melbourne should be winning this game, but definitely an important game for the Warriors to get their season going. Seagulls versus Roosters. The Roosters are a 2.5-point favorite here. Last time they met, they're a 4.5-point favorite. They've covered 3 of the past 4 against Manly. Both these sides also coming back from Vegas. 4 of the past 5 have also gone under the total. Total set at the same number it was last time these two sides met. The Roosters do have a good record against the Seagulls. I'd be leaning towards the Roosters to win this game. I'd prefer that number to be minus 1.5, or the head-to-head odds push up to the $1.75, $1.80 mark, but I'd be leaning towards the Roosters to be winning this game. I am surprised that line has come down 2 points. And then the final game in the round on Sunday afternoon, the Dolphins take on the Dragons. These sides have only met twice. They've split those games. The home teams won and covered the line in both of them. Home team has been favorite in both, but the Dragons have been put up a 1.5 point favorite for this game. Last time they met, Dolphins were a 6.5 point favorite. So fairly big adjustments from the round one performances, I feel like, influencing this game. Dolphins coming off a big loss to the Cowboys, Dragons coming off a big win to the Gold Coast Titans. However, I would be leaning towards the Dolphins in this game. If we just forget round one, then you would have Dolphins close to a converted try favorite for this game. So I don't want to put too much weight on round one. So I'll just be monitoring what the line movement is for this game. But right now, leaning towards the Dolphins, and the total set at the same number it was last week. But right now, I'd be leaning to last game. But right now, I'd be leaning towards the over in this matchup. So those are my early thoughts for all the games coming up this week. I'll be doing previews for the game, so make sure you like this video and subscribe to the page so that you get to see all of those. We're going to be going through the bet finders, which you can see here, looking at how these teams stack up against each other, still using the statistics from the 2023 season, because obviously you don't want to put so much weight into the round one games. So this is how we analyze the game so that we're able to make profit throughout the season.